Aloha everybody, Rebby back tonight, and we diving into night two of the May 2025 Ka Wai Ola magazine. This article I'm reading is about combating coral bleaching by Lisa. When researcher Ka Wai Ola started working at the Hawaii Institute for Marine Biology, or HIMB, back in 1992, hardly anyone had heard of coral bleaching, a stress response that causes corals to lose their color. But just 4 years later, Hawaii had its first documented widespread coral bleaching event, which affected reefs in Kaneohe, Kailua, and Waimanalo. A decade later, two major coral bleaching events happened in 2014 and 2015, bleaching more than half of all corals statewide and leading up to a 30% loss. In Kaneohe Bay alone, it was observed that 80% of the coral had been bleached. Researchers and resource managers now know more than they did a decade ago about why some corals seem more resilient in the face of increased stress. What they've learned has led to positive changes in coastal management, scientific advancements, and the implementation of novel approaches, all aimed at giving corals a better chance of survival. We're at a very pivotal place right now in history where the decisions we make today, and especially this decade, are going to determine the direction of the future of our reefs. It's gotten that bad, said Rogers, who recently retired from HIMB. We've already lost over half of the world's coral reefs, but the good news is that we still have half of the coral reefs, and many of them are in Hawaii. Coral bleaching happens when corals expel symbiotic algae from their tissues as a stress response to environmental factors, including increased ocean temperatures. But many Hawaiian corals are also uptake zooplankton from the water as another source of nutrients, said Rogers. These species of corals have lower mortality rates than others. Prolonged coral bleaching can cause die-offs of coral colonies, which form the foundation of all marine life. In 2015, the Hawaii Coral Bleaching Collaborative was formed to create a system and a network through which coral reefs could be rapidly surveyed following bleaching events. Hawaii has stood out across the road as being one of the more coordinated places. We've had inquiries from all over the world asking us how we've been so successful. The reason why is because we came together under the HCBC, said HCBC coordinator Mary Donovan, who joined the HIMB last year as an assistant researcher. Heat waves in Hawaii typically occur during the warmest months, usually starting in August and ending by December, Donovan said. A prominent study has shown that the heat waves are becoming more frequent and lasting longer. The latest data shows pollution, particularly from waste disposal, weakens corals' ability to survive heat stress. The presence of herbivorous fish such as uhu, kala, and inui have helped maintain the balance between coral and algae. Areas with pollution and low populations of herbivores can be overgrown with algae that suffocate coral reefs and makes them less likely to survive bleaching events. Donovan's team is working on a statewide analysis on the variability of coral reef health related to these environmental factors. DAR set a goal of sustainably managing herbivore populations through responsible harvesting practices in order to promote coral reef resilience. In February 2024, after a years-long public process, resource managers adopted new fishing rules that increased the minimum size required to harvest certain herbivore species important to coral reef health. Beyond management action, scientists are also looking at ways to support coral restoration efforts through technological advancements. One example comes from Smithsonian Institution researcher Mary, whose lab at HIMB is studying viable ways to save coral egg and sperm through cryopreservation or freezing. If these corals are lost, at least there is still something that can help them, like having a bank of reproduction, said Rogers. Last year, Hagedorn and other researchers from Harvard Medical School, National Ecological Observatory Network, University Corporation of Atmospheric Research, and the University of Minnesota published a paper in Bioscience exploring the idea of creating a passive lunar biorepository, cryogenic preservation of biological material on the moon to safeguard Earth's biodiversity. Very interesting. All right.